Boa noite a todos. Welcome back to Tom Plays EUIV Universalis 4 for absolute beginners. We're back with Portugal, and we're finally starting the clock. So, the explorer's on his way, the trade ships are on the way. So now I want to recombine the navies. So our Armada Real is going to be our main navy. And we're going to start moving troops across to our enclave. But we also need to keep a very close eye on the explorer. So we've got 6 trade ships, 6 light ships. They'll be doing their own thing. But the explorer we need to watch. This is another thing with DLCs, that you just sort of set them to explore. Okay, brilliant. So this is what we wanted. We have an alliance offer from Castile. So, who else has Castile allied? Brittany and Portugal. So maybe we should also try to ally Brittany? Actually, might think twice about that one. Simply because it's extremely likely that France will want to conquer Brittany. I'm actually wondering, in terms of alliances, if we'd be better off with someone beyond France, maybe? Maybe even someone like Austria? I think they often get on quite well with Castile. So you see, we're now making some inroads. I'm not sure if we can actually... Yeah, we can't actually go into the main sea. So we're basically stuck exploring Africa. These islands here are some of the first places that you can colonise. As Portugal, we might have other options, but they're quite a good option because I believe they're uninhabited and they're far further south than our current most southern point. A lot of the colonising is all about range. You have this concept of colonial range which grows over time, I think with diplomatic tech and with ideas. But to start with, we're a bit hampered by it. So we may be forced to colonise places that we otherwise wouldn't be that interested in. I don't tend to go for islands much, for preference. But we might be forced to colonise them simply because I think we've just completed our first quest. Simply because they allow us to colonise places further on. Okay, so we're exploring Africa. Still on 100% health, which is surprising. So this mission fulfilled would be this one. No, it isn't. Oh, we've built force limits. Sorry, this is because I set some armies to build. So, okay, brilliant. So that will have given us a few advantages, which I didn't bother to check up on. So let's just highlight our forces, move them into position, and we can hopefully move them all over here. Okay. So another thing we could do with doing... interesting. I hadn't realised our king isn't actually old enough to start wars. One thing we could do doing is another diplomatic thing. Let me just pause for a sec, because I'm worried about our explorer. If I right click on Morocco, if we're going to do any military stuff at all, it's likely to be in Morocco. Possibly Granada, but Morocco is the obvious place. We've already made inroads. So what I want to do is start building a spy network. This will tie up one of our diplomats, who I'm going to come back to in a second. But it basically just takes time to build. It says it's going to increase in size by 1.83. And that will give us excuses to go to war, which would be useful. I might even do one in Granada, just in case. Okay, let's go back to the Explorer for now. Let's start the clock again. So, let's have a look at these up here. We've got 4 different types of person that are at our disposal. Okay, we have 2 traders, merchants, sorry, not traders. Now, they were actually assigned at the start of the game, so I'm not proposing to mess with them. They usually set up quite sensibly when they are assigned. So we've currently got 0 of 2 available, so we're not going to worry about them right now, but they're going to become very important later. There's just some information from Austria which doesn't really affect us. Colonists, again, they will become important later, but we don't yet have any. Diplomats, we have 3, so we've tied up 2 of them now. Spying, so we've only got 1 available. I mean, a lot of the time you do want to keep them active. One of the main things they can do if they're not busy doing anything else is improve relations with another country, which is generally always worth doing, except possibly if they're your rival or enemy, in which case it won't make much difference. Even then, sometimes it can be worth it. We've just started taking damage, so at some point we're going to have to turn back because we've got a long way to go home, and we are going to get damaged as time goes on. Done quite well though. I wonder if it's because he's such a good explorer. And the last one is missionaries, so we've only got 1 available. Well, we only have 1 in total, and he's available. We can basically use them to convert a province to our own religion, which at the moment is Roman Catholic, and will probably stay that way because Portugal tended historically and tends still to be quite loyal to Catholicism. So we do have a province which could benefit from that. The main benefits is that it just helps bring your country together. You're less likely to have uprisings and things if the religion of a province matches the state's religion. But at the moment our province is sufficiently Muslim that he's actually not going to achieve anything. He could work there forever and he's just not powerful enough as a missionary. We could improve his power with ideas later. There's an option for religious ideas. We are going to cover ideas when we get to them, but for the time being we're basically just accepting that that province is Muslim and this guy's just sitting idle. So yeah, those are the 4 main types of people. A lot of the time you do want them all busy, with the exception of missionaries, because you know they can actually run out of things to do. Especially if you're like Portugal and aren't really a conquering nation that much. If you play as the Ottomans, your missionary is basically busy perpetually. Right, let us bring this ship back to Madeira. So we're going to Madeira because then we'll be a bit closer when we set off. We're going to have to wait for them to get home and wait for them to heal back up to 100%. And healing the ship, strangely, takes sailors. So, yeah, you see it's already gone down to 84%. So even though it might look like I turned back quite early, if anything, I probably turned back a bit late. It's a danger we might lose the ship, and these ships are very expensive. But there's not much we can do about it. So we've now got all our armed forces in Lisboa. So let's attach them to a transport. Left click on the Navy, right click over here. It looks like that was just enough to get our entire army across. If we go back to the military screen, yeah, so we're at our force limit with the army. We've got room for 3 more ships. So transports would be the cheapest, given we don't have a lot of money. Okay, this I think is telling us we've lost some land troops just because they were on a boat and the boat got damaged. Okay, now this is one of the big reasons why we broke our alliance with England. There's this event called the Surrender of Maine. However, in this occasion it looks like England have capitulated. In fact, it's the second time I've played with the Austria patch. The one that came with the Emperor DLC, and I think England has capitulated both times. I wonder if that's going to be common now. Usually you end up in a big war, and it's not a good war if you're England, so it's not a great war for any of England's allies. Here's why we didn't want to be one of England's allies. Okay, even though that does diverge from history quite a lot. Right, so Castile now is allied with Brittany, Navarra and Portugal. Right, so that doesn't really help us very much. This is from Poland, not a big deal. So Navarra is this very small province that probably either Castile or Aragon is going to turn into a vassal, which is not something we need to worry about, but they'll effectively take control of them and ultimately probably annex them. And Brittany, I think, is likely to end up fighting France, which I would rather not do. So I'm wondering if it would be worth us... What would be our options in terms of allying the Papal State? Okay, so this is where we've lost out. They don't want to ally us. You often find for these diplomatic decisions, you get a nice big green cross, or sorry, big green tick, or a nice big red cross. Can't speak today. And if you actually hover over it, you get the reasons, and one of the problems is basically they've already made all their alliances. So we're kind of losing out. Ditto for Austria. Bohemia. Yeah, so we've lost most of our opportunities to make allies, which is upsetting, but it's fine. Generally we can get along fine with just Castile. So we should probably improve relations. So I'm actually just going to improve relations with Castile. What I will probably do is look at royal marriages. If we have any options to get royal marriages with people, we may go for those, because they also cost a diplomatic relation, even if you don't want to be allied to someone. But yeah, for the time being, let's just improve. Okay, so our ship got back safe and sound. They're now on 70% health, so we're going to wait for them to recover. And then we're likely to send them to explore more of Africa. You can see we've already discovered quite a bit of Africa. And Portugal traditionally did tend to go in this direction, with the notable exception of Brazil. Now there are a few of these provinces which in theory we could colonise if we had a colonist. Except this one's too far away. So we'll look at this again once we do have colonists, but yeah, at the moment you see Sierra Leone, 232 distance away, colonial range is only 200. So we probably couldn't colonise Sierra Leone even if we did want to, whereas some of these options, this one, if we explored it, is currently terra incognita, and Cape Verde, I believe we could reach already. Yeah, I think it's literally just saying we don't have any colonists. However, in the meantime, we need to think about potentially attacking Morocco. Right, got a little report here. So this is what we're going to do to Morocco. They've obviously had a spy working in Portugal and they've claimed the Algarve as theirs. So we are going to return the favour. Unfortunately, I think they started before we did. So our spy network is currently at size 16.47. We do need to watch our missions as well, because I believe if we can fulfill this mission, we may get an automatic claim on Tangier. So maybe we should do that. So go to the production interface again. I'm going to look at ships this time. Now in a perfect world, I'd quite like to get light ships because they will help us with money. However, we can afford cogs, which are transports. So it might be safer to go for those. The advantage of the transports is they'll allow us to move more of our army at a time. A disadvantage is that they're not much use in combat. I think, to be honest, maybe we'll just take our time a bit. We'll let the spy network build. There is a danger of us getting discovered. We don't want to take our time too much, because it's possible that when the countries start developing, Morocco will put more into the military because they need to, whereas we are going to be purely focused on exploration and colonisation. which is what we need. We don't really need the military that much, so it's only right at the start that we're going to be a power to be reckoned with as far as Morocco is concerned. We also could do with keeping an eye on the truces with Granada, simply because I think Castile probably has the same truce with Granada, and they're going to be very keen to take this land for themselves, so they're very likely to drag us into a war with Granada. And if Morocco is allied to them, which does sometimes happen, yep, then that will also put us at war with Morocco at the same time, which would be bad. Because it would then mean that once the war was over, we would have a truce in Morocco and we'll be unable to attack them for quite some time to come. So we really need to think about getting that mission fulfilled, getting our claim on Tangier, and starting a war. So let's see about this. Okay, I'm going to need one of my diplomats back at some point. Anyway, yeah, so spy networks. So we've got a spy network building, and we've currently got an option to fabricate a claim. So I'm going to go ahead with Granada. Aha. Okay, we're not too concerned about this yet, although it is going to matter to us later. There is one country, which in this case is the Papal State, which is a country, is designated the papal controller for each pope. So we've got a new pope, Pius II. If the papal controller is you get a lot of advantages. If the papal controller is an ally, you're probably quite safe. If the papal controller is an enemy, you're in danger of being excommunicated, which is really bad if you're a Catholic. Right, let's put a claim on Jabal Tariq. There we go, so that's our claim. We now have a reason for war, a casus belli. So I'm just thinking, if we do get dragged into a war with Granada, or if our war with Morocco includes Granada, we might have the option of taking this province. It may not come to anything, but it's, you know, it's a possibility. Okay. So we should probably have a claim in Morocco as well if we can. But let's just send our explorer down. So generally with manual exploration, when you don't have the DLCs, you just want to sort of move a little further each time. Once we have our exploration ideas as well, Quest to the New World, we can start exploring this way. At the moment we're having to ignore all this terra incognita and just focus on Africa, which is fine. Right, well, we do have enough for 2 trade ships, so I think I am going to go with trade ships, simply because I'm conscious of the terrible money problems that we're going to be facing as soon as we start colonising. So I think trade ships would be a good option. So with the spy network, there's a bunch of different things you can do. Some of them require more diplomatic technology, so we won't be able to sow discontent no matter how high we get. I think at the moment we're probably limited to fabricate claim, which we just did on Granada, and support rebels, which we need a spy network of 60 to do. Currently on 25.62. Fabricate claim takes 20 the first time, but for each one you do, it then goes up a bit. So 25 the next time, 30 the next. So eventually it becomes quite difficult to fabricate a whole bunch of claims. Once you do fabricate a claim, there is an expiry date on it. So that's why I'm kind of holding off on making a claim on Morocco. It's kind of interesting because we're going to have like probably 1 or maybe 2 opportunities to actually take land from Morocco, and... Oh, they're at war. No. No, they're not. And they're only allied with Granada, which is good. That could really help us out. But yeah, it doesn't really matter that much. We do have missions relating to it. There's this whole little bit of a tree. Once we get our navy up to scratch, we start by conquering Tangier, and then we expand the buffer zone by, I think, taking, I think, these two, which we'll also get claims on. But we can always do it later once Portugal becomes a huge world power. At which point we might be in a position to do things like conquer Castile or conquer England. But one thing at a time, and to be fair, on your first playthrough of Portugal, probably shouldn't assume you're going to be able to do that. The main thing is that we keep our primary lands, and that we manage to do a good job of colonising the world. So we'll be focusing on our colonising. Okay, so this is an event. Often the game gets paused when these come up, but not always. I think it can depend on settings. So this is one where we have to make a choice. That's often the case, and in effect we've been offered to gain some papal influence, which is kept track of down here. You can do two things with papal influence, but it's always a good thing. But we've also got the option to let the matter drop, which will give us 5 prestige. Now prestige is up here. You get a lot of benefits from having a positive prestige. It goes from -100 to +100, in which respect it's like legitimacy, which ours is extremely high, and power protection. But we're positive on all of them, so I think that's a good thing. We get benefits from all of them. Prestige is far more valuable than papal influence, so we should take the high road here and say, let's not do bribery, let's let the matter drop. And our prestige is up to 4. We do want papal influence. We're probably likely to start getting some through having cardinals, which will just arise. There's not much we can do about them, but we'll start gaining a certain amount each month, and then we'll start really looking into what we can do as a Roman Catholic. How our devoutness can work for us. As soon as our money gets to 20, we want to build our 3rd trade ship, because we need 3 to reach our naval force limit, which will fulfill this mission and will hopefully kickstart our invasion of Morocco, assuming Castile doesn't get ahead of us. In fact, just in case Castile does get ahead of us, I'm thinking we should fabricate at least 1 claim. Still on 100% health, oddly enough. So just heading down Africa. We could speed the time up. I'm actually planning, as soon as this appears, to send them a bit further on, although we better watch it because we've just gone down to 94% health. So I think this will be the last one. And let's fabricate a claim on this province, because I believe our natural claims come on these 3. The problem is we are clashing with Castile a little on this. They will also want Moroccan provinces, but they're more concerned about Granadan provinces, so it's going to be more of a clash if we take any of those. In some ways, we might be better off not doing. So should be getting reasonably close. Yep, close to the Cape. So this exploration, it's partly about working out where to colonise. I mean, that's the main reason for doing it. We're going to be a little picky about where we colonise, especially because as Portugal, we're going to be first. We got a head start. No one else is even able to do this at the moment, so the whole of Africa is unknown to anyone except the actual Africans. All the other European nations will be in the dark until they hear of this area from us. Okay, we've got another event. Alright, we get these. They're an absolute pain. We basically got 2 options. We either lose monarch points from one of the three areas, or we ignore them and we lose 10 prestige. I used to be almost inclined to lose prestige. I'm less so now. I actually think 10 prestige is far more valuable than 50 diplomatic power. Maybe if we had a lot of prestige, we could lose it, but because we only have 12 out of a possible 100, I'm just going to take the hit to diplomatic power, even though it's not ideal at all. Okay, we've gone far enough, we're on 86%, let's head back to Madeira. The problem is the further we go in exploration, the further back we have to go to get back to a port. So eventually we're going to get to the point where we just can't explore anymore. One thing that is worth pointing out is a little skull that's next to this unit. We'll get this on land troops as well. It's worth looking out for. You kind of accept it. Granada's exploding, which is going to be good for Castile. You kind of accept it on ships. Ships do tend to take damage over time. But land troops, if you're in enemy territory, fine. A little skull, you kind of accept. If you're in your territory and they've got a little skull, you've got problems. So you can see that our land force at the moment does not have a little skull, and we are good. It's all fine. Right, we're going to build our last light ship. So in theory, once all three ships are built, we should be up to our naval force limit, fulfill this mission, get a claim on Tangier, and we will go and attack Morocco. Ideally, we want to pull Castile into the war with Morocco if we possibly can. This is just a little alert saying that we're taking a lot of damage. We're down to 48% health, and look at all this wave that he's still got to go to get back. It's something you really need to keep an eye on. I think we're going to lose this ship, so I think I've actually messed this up. And these ships are very expensive to build, so that's actually really bad. I suppose I could try to make a quick alliance with one of the African ships and get permission to land our troops there. It's probably too late. So you've got an option here for fleet basing rights, but they're not keen to give it to us. And we don't want to be an ally. Who else have we got? Jollof. Same deal, yeah. I think unfortunately this ship is going to be lost. I didn't think it would take this much damage when it's moving along the coast. They usually take more. There we go. One of our vessels has been lost. So this is why you need to be extremely careful when exploring, not to go too far. Well, can't be helped. So these are the pretenders. This nephew, Yusuf. So you can see that he's occupied one of the provinces now. It doesn't look like the official Granadan army is actually doing anything much to stop him. Kind of surprising. So you see he's got a little skull, but I would expect this because he's currently in enemy territory. But yeah, I kind of wonder if he's actually going to succeed. Whether Castile will wait to see who wins and then attack while they're weakened, or whether they will attack in force. Actually, to be fair, it looks like the truce still has quite a way to go. So possibly not too much of a concern. What I do have as a concern is that I need to decide whether to hand over another one of our heavy ships for exploration, or whether I want to keep it with our navy to keep our navy strong. Unfortunately, it also has set us back in reaching our naval force limit, losing that ship. Might have to actually make a cog this time. It's upsetting. Okay, so Afonso V has finally come of age. So we're now in theory able to make a new... able to declare war, should we wish to. So the monarchs in generally, they have points from 0 to 6. If you remember, these increase in monarch power per month above the base of 3, so how good your monarch is a really big deal. So you can see that our heir is going to be a much better king than the current one, assuming the heir survives. They're not capable of being king yet. It looks like it must be age 15 in Portugal, the point at which you're able to actually rule. So ultimately they would go from 0 to 18 in total, and Afonso is basically a 7, so not very good. The heir is a bit better, but not a huge amount we can do about it. I think one of the DLCs allows you to actually retire the king to make way for the heir and stuff like that. One thing we can do is once the heir is of age, it is possible to make the king a leader of the army, which does increase their chances of being killed and can sometimes give you a good general for free. So that's something we could consider. Okay, I've got another claim fabrication. Okay, this is interesting. This is related to our problems with nobles. Now, I don't really get this. I should probably look at what happened historically, but it seems to me that the Duke... I haven't seen any particular reason to think that the Duke is disloyal. So the noblemen are basically trying to frame the Duke as a would-be rebel. The Duke has arrived to try and seek an audience. So we've got an option to basically put him and his men to death, which gives us extra stability. We haven't looked at stability. It goes from -3 to +3. It's very useful. The more stable your country is, the better by a long way. Although I tend to think Portugal's quite a stable country anyway compared to most. So I'm not as concerned. Still, +1 stability is a big deal. However, the alternative is that until the death of our king, who is currently 15, we get benefits to our money, which is something we really need in Portugal. So I think in terms of game, and in terms of the fact that I can't see any reason to think he's not been loyal, let's go with this one. It's what I'd rather do from a role-playing perspective anyway. So I feel rather bad for the Duke. Okay, let's make a claim on Melilla. And I might stop building the spy network now, because I think we made all the claims we're realistically going to do. There tends to be a limit on how many provinces you can or should take in one war. So one reason I've avoided Fez is that it's actually Morocco's capital, and also for trade reasons, which we will go into later, I would quite like to have these coastlands. In some ways, I'd almost rather have them than the capital, even though the capital's probably really strong and well developed. But yeah, I mean, honestly, in terms of stability with Portugal, if we just look at the government, we basically have only one culture, Portuguese. You compare this to playing a country like Castile. I mean, Castile is basically a combination of a whole bunch of different kingdoms that have only relatively recently come together, whereas Portugal is really stable in comparison. Our only separate bit is the Moroccan inhabitants. So we will come back to this at some point, because you do have an option to promote a culture. We'll probably have to take more land, or possibly develop land in order to do it, but when we can, we probably should. Because hopefully we're going to have a few Moroccan lands, and we want, the Moroccans to feel like they're part of a country, to feel like they're Portuguese. So, great. Progress. Okay. Let's bring these new trade ships together. And actually, we do have enough to build one last trade ship. So let's do that. So we're going to go fully for money. Does mean our navy isn't as powerful as I would like. I'm also concerned that I'm now not exploring, which I really should be. We're really going to have to either accept an even less powerful navy. In fact, let's do that. So I'm going to use the split in half option again. I'm going to keep splitting until I get one of the heavy ships on its own, and I'm going to give that to the explorer again. early Carrack. Neapolitan succession. So I'm going to send that to Madeira. Yeah, fair enough. Not really our problem. Naples is quite interesting because I believe it starts as a vassal of Aragon, and there's a chance there's this Iberian wedding event which allows Castile and Aragon to join together, so you often get Naples thrown in if you're playing Castile, which is definitely nice. Okay, I think these trade ships are going to end up on the same mission. Oh, hang on, no. Not necessarily, actually. Safi is still the most profitable place to go, but there is the Ivory Coast. Yeah, I might send the new ones to the Ivory Coast. I think they will all join together. Remember to click this button. Although there won't be any friendly ports handy in the Ivory Coast, but hopefully there won't be too many enemies either. Okay, so the remaining two I'll also send to the Ivory Coast, and I think they'll end up joining forces. But whether or not, we should be fine. I see the rebellion's still going strong. Okay. So we didn't... No, we did lose the Explorer. Okay then. I was not expecting that. I wonder if I missed an announcement. You don't usually, as far as I know, lose your Explorer or Admiral when the ships go down. Unless that's something that's changed in the last patch. Interesting. Right, that's very unfortunate then. So we've lost our big advantage. Still, on the plus side, we've done quite a bit of exploration down here. And it sounds like we can't explore west until we get the quest for the New World, by which point we'll be able to make explorers. But in the meantime, we may as well have a powerful navy, if we can. Okay, so what I think is happening here is the army's playing cleanup crew. So while the rebellion is over here in the east of Granada, they're taking back the lands they conquered in the past. It's not ideal, but if you can't defeat them in open battle, sometimes it's the only option you've got to stop them taking over the country. So yeah, I think they're splitting the army so they can take them back quicker. You don't need a big army to do this. Actually, we've probably got the option for another claim in Granada as well. Not necessarily. I'm going to stop the spy network there as well, which means we can probably start improving relations. So let's improve our relations with England, having kind of broken up with them. And let's improve our relations with the Papal State. So this really costs you nothing. It just ties up a diplomat for a while, and it just makes them think better of you. The Papal State is always worth keeping good relations with as a Catholic, because if their opinion of you is high enough, you cannot be excommunicated, which is one of the first things your enemies will probably try to do if they become a papal controller. And in general, as Portugal, we have no particular reason not to be on good terms with anyone, except maybe Morocco. So we will probably be doing a lot of improving relations as time goes on. Thinking we should form it back into one navy, so that's all in one navy. We're all in one army. We're absolutely ready to go. Just as soon as the last two trade ships get built, we will start looking at invading Morocco. However, I think that's going to be for next time. I'll try and keep these to like half an hour, 40 minutes when I can, so we've technically gone a little bit over. But yeah, so haven't achieved a huge amount yet. Things do tend to get a bit more exciting as the game goes on. We've managed to explore all down the west coast of Africa though, which is good, puts us in a good position for when we start colonising. So that's something we want to do as soon as possible. The way we're going to get there first is through administrative power, so we need to accumulate this to improve our admin tech. That will then allow us to get national ideas, for which we're going to need diplomatic power, which is why it's a shame that we lost 50. We might want to look at estates again next time. Just see if there's anything we can do to boost this by being nice to our estates. But we will leave that to next time, and I will see you then.